I already have the rest. I already have the next 13 Cleveland games planned out pretty extensively. I'm starting to build like a nest in the corner of my bedroom that I can just kind of nestle into, and my girlfriend can walk up and just go, "Aw," and then like pass me beers from across the room. And I'm just gonna mumble to myself like, "They could have won the game." And bleh.
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, September the 26th, 2017, and this is the Fourth and Wrong Podcast. I'm RJ, and joining me, as always, is Keith. Say hi, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
See, I think I'm going to try and drop the, host thing and just work out of that, but it's weird because it's the mouth muscle memory just wants to keep doing it. Kind of like when I call this podcast a different podcast sometimes, and that's also something I have to change.
Well, when you came out of the gate on this one, I was like, damn, he really is taking this one more seriously.
Yeah, let's do this shit.
I feel like I'm on an actual radio show.
Gotta hype up the crowd. Like I was telling you right before we started recording, air quotes started recording, because there's totally not 10 minutes of bullshit that we talk before this thing actually hits the intro music. I felt like I sounded a little tired on last week's podcast because we're kind of recording these a little late because they're actually being recorded on Tuesday, and now I'm looking at the waveforms like I also said I wasn't going to do. So I wanted to fix that, and also maybe cut some of the uhs out.
Do you still have your waveform memorized?
Editing joke.
Damn
it, I did it again. Yeah, I could see the matrix by the time I was done editing it. Those are also jokes that nobody's gonna get, and this is starting off real hot. All right, let's just get right into it. Let's talk team talk because that's how we start these things. I think we started with the Browns last week.
Yeah.
So we'll give you a little time to rest on your laurels. And we'll talk about the Bills first.
You started so strong.
Yeah, I know. This is, you know.
So anyways, in the Bills news,
we beat an actual team, I guess.
Beat an actual team.
Or that's what everybody will say. I haven't looked at the power rankings, but I'm sure we still dropped a spot somehow. It was, if we had an offense that wasn't so anemic, we would be an incredibly difficult team to beat at this point.
You think so?
The Bills are number one in the league for fewest points allowed per game. So yeah, I feel pretty confident in saying that. I think we're top half, I know for sure, in yards in both categories. So, you can drive the field on us, but you're getting field goals at, pretty much at the most. Like Denver put up 16 points, and that's the most we've allowed in a game so far this season. And last week they scored 42. So
right.
It's hard to get in the end zone against us. Carolina didn't do it. The Jets only did it once.
And a lot of their points came off field goals. They only scored one touchdown.
Yes. Correctamundo. So, just talking about the offense real quick, I'm becoming more and more disappointed with Zay Jones. He's not delivering as advertised. Mr. 399 catches in his career at ECU and 158 his senior year. And I'm seeing why a lot of them came off of bubble screens and stuff. Mm-hmm. That or maybe, I don't know, he's just not clicked in with Tyrod yet. Part of it is on the quarterback to a certain degree, but there have definitely been some passes that have been in a catchable area that he just hasn't had. And then he had one reception, one of our touchdowns, our very first touchdown, which was the goofiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Zay Jones gets it thrown to him in the end zone. It's it's an and goal situation, so it's not that long of a pass. It bounces off of his hands up in the air, and I'm like, well, that's a pick. Or I think it was third down. It's all right, well, I guess we're kicking a field goal. And Andre Holmes is just there, it's a Hail Mary drill, and snags it, and we score a touchdown. And I'm like, all right, or that happens. And I think I laughed for a solid 3 minutes at it. And I was like, yeah, all right, this is the dumb shit we're doing today. So, cool. But
well, you got to laugh at stuff like that.
Yeah. So Zay's
it worked out in your benefit. So
yeah, well, we still put 6 points on the board, and then Hauschka put through the extra point, and Hauschka's also been pretty reliable. Not 61 yards with 1 second left on the clock reliable, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah, like Zay is just not coming through. We lost the game to Carolina on a pass that, like we talked about last week, or like I talked about last week, was probably pretty catchable for most people, and it just didn't happen. The other thing that I'm noticing is LaShawn McCoy not getting a lot of help from the offensive line in recent weeks. I'm sure you've also noticed, and your fantasy team is loving it now.
Sure have.
But he's still clutch in places where we need him. He said it himself. The thing that I've noticed about Shady in his few years in Buffalo is I've seen a lot of players who just get agitated, and even if they don't blame the team directly, you see that like underlying simmering, whereas LaShawn like always puts the blame on himself, even if he's not fucking getting any help. There have been situations where he said, basically he just needs to get to the outside more, because it gets him in space. And hey, maybe if he just does that, it still helps in some way, and he's just got to get better other places. He doesn't say, well, the scheme, maybe isn't working out the best or anything. He just always puts it on himself, and I'm honestly surprised by that because he was such a big name and he's a big personality, and most of the time personalities come out and that diva thing happens, but that hasn't. But he's still been clutch for us where we've needed him, and that's what you need out of one of your stars.
Yeah, I would definitely consider this game substandard for LaShawn McCoy, but like we've expected so much greatness out of him, especially after last season.
Right, and we've seen how much offensive lines can just make or break a running game just in general.
Oh, sure. A perfect example is the Cowboys played the Broncos. The Broncos' front seven pretty much dictated the pace for that offensive line, and Zeke could barely move the ball.
Yep.
And this is the same runner that was busting at least 70 yards a game last year.
Right, and again, like Buffalo has, in my opinion, no true number one receiver. Like we've got Jordan Matthews, who was number one for Philadelphia last year, but he's again, he's not like a big deep threat, and we've got nobody to stretch the field behind him. So.
Yeah, watching the highlights that I did, the passing game was consistent. Tyrod was actually surprisingly accurate.
Yeah, I mean, 20 for 26 isn't anything to shake a stick at, and again, no interceptions, so those are all good. Yeah. Like, he had a good rating and that kind of thing, but it's the low number of throws Tyrod play that we're used to. The Bills, I think, actually got pretty decent field position for most of the game, so that also helps a lot.
It would almost have to be that situation, considering Denver outgained Buffalo in every aspect of the game.
Yeah.
There was some key turnovers on the Broncos side. Obviously, Trevor Siemian throwing 2 picks isn't going to do them any favors.
Yeah, to both of our cornerbacks who are not great. EJ Gaines I've complained about before. Tre'Davious White I'm complaining about again because they both seem to get beat a lot. Again, I think I said it last week where they'll run into coverage and there will be 3 yards or more between them and the receiver, like as soon as that receiver stops running in a straight line. They both consistently have wideouts getting behind them. They both got called for a pass interference in the first quarter, and both of their picks in the game were like pressure interceptions where Siemian was backpedaling and kind of just hucked something up in the air. They weren't good, high point fight for the ball pickoffs. They were, this was a bad throw and they got to adjust on it.
Yeah, it wasn't something like, they were able to read the quarterback and jump the route or something that would exemplify good corner play.
Right.
It was mostly a product of your front seven putting pressure on Siemian.
Yep.
Especially with the kind of day Siemian was having.
Right. I mean, which wasn't terrible. Like his percentage wasn't super high, but other than that, he was able to move the ball.
Yeah, I mean, they moved the ball relatively well. One thing I did notice is there was plenty of pressure on Siemian. I did feel like Trevor Siemian was having to shift around in the pocket and try to make plays out of nothing.
And with no Marcel Darius on the line.
Right. The Bills never really got to him much, and the few times you did, it wasn't for big yardage.
Yeah, three sacks for 4 yards is not a huge distance to push anybody back.
No. You know, if you're going to get the sack on the quarterback, you know, you want to at least get 5 yards out of it.
Right.
But I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
But you know, pressure can force bad throws, and bad throws turn into interceptions. You know, so your defense was still doing the defense thing. I do agree with you where I feel like your secondary is kind of anemic.
Not our secondary. I mean, our safeties have still played really well and are bailing out our cornerbacks pretty hardcore.
Yeah, I'll take that back. I don't think your secondary is anemic. I think the only reason you have a secondary is because of your safety.
That's the one.
Yeah. Just hearing you talk about it so much, and then me watching as limited Bills football as I watch, I have noticed that, especially when the Bills play off in like a soft zone, Denver Broncos have really good receivers like Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. They're going to recognize that zone, and they're going to adjust.
Yep.
And if you're playing off that far, I've noticed your corners play off really far off the receiver.
Yep.
There's no jam at the line. They're not trying to disrupt the release. They're just trying to stay in their zone. If somebody enters the zone, they engage the receiver. But by then, the ball's already out of Simeon's hands.
Yep.
Now, whether or not Simeon makes a good throw or not, that's secondary.
Right, and we've been bringing like a lot of A-gap blitzes with linebackers and stuff like that, or showing pressure with them and then dropping them back. But when guys are just cutting over the middle and those linebackers aren't there to clean that up immediately, those quick little one-off 5-6 yarders, you know, often turn into more than that when the guy's already got separation.
Yeah, well, especially if your linebackers are pushed up the line, like you said, showing that blitz in the A-gap, and like say the slot receiver, you know, hits a slant in the middle, they already have separations because they're already 3 yards out of position because they're, you know, quote unquote showing pressure.
Right.
And when there's nobody there to disrupt that play, that's an easy strike. And now you have to collapse the safeties and the corners on them. And there is going to be a lot of free running room until that secondary collapses on that receiver.
Yep. That's how 3rd and 12s turn into first downs, when they get a little bit ahead of steam and actually only have to, you know, run for 3 or 4 yards before getting that first down because they're just in the middle and there's nobody home. I've only got a couple other notes on this. Penalties. Sure. I feel like the Bills have been pretty good on penalties this season, especially compared to the Rex Ryan years. All 2 of them. We had a couple of big back-to-back flags that let Denver drive for their first touchdown, and that really sucked, and I thought that was going to be a big turning point in the game because I think they drove the field in like maybe a minute and a half of game time or less. Well, a minute and a half probably to 2 minutes, something like that. But it was basically 2 15-yard penalties on 2 plays that also got big chunk yardage on top of it. So that was not great, and we've got to not do that. We also saw another example of bad clock management, in my opinion, from Sean McDermott, where we had like 35 seconds left in the half. We ended up making it down and kicking a field goal, but we had 2 timeouts left, and he let the clock run for like 10 or 11 seconds before we got a playoff and then called a timeout, at which point we had like 18 seconds and like 2 shots to make a play and then kick it. So that was not great. We ended up having to try and make a pass with a guy getting out of bounds, and thankfully he did. I think that was another Andre Holmes play, which, you know, stopped the clock with 6 seconds, and then Hauschka put it through, but those are the kind of coaching decisions where it's like, save the time up front, because even if you have to punt at the end, just hang that thing in the air and they'll kneel it, because they're probably not going to do anything dumb even if we don't put any points up. So hopefully that improves, because that's 2 weeks in a row where I've definitely seen that. And I guess the last thing from the game was, did you see the Von Miller unsportsmanlike flag?
Yeah, I did.
So
that's such a crock of shit.
I kind of disagree, because that's kind of bad sportsmanship.
No, it's not, because Von Miller's done that to so many other players, and the players get that it's the joke. You know, like you saw when Tyrod got up. You know, Tyrod and Von Miller were just laughing at each other.
Oh, sure, but you know, I don't. I understand that it's funny. I also understand that in a professional game, you know, that could just as easily be considered taunting, and I've seen taunting calls for less.
Sure. I don't think it's anything that's unnecessary. Von Miller's a big personality, and he's just having some fun.
I didn't say it was unnecessary. I just said it is unsportsmanlike, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I don't agree, but
It also got a 15-yard flag that then kept that drive alive, so that ended up not being great for them. Tyrod afterwards was, they asked him, why were you laughing? Was it because you thought it was funny or because it worked against them? He was like, both.
Yeah. I mean, you can't help but smile when, a flag gets thrown on something like that, and it's like, well, thanks for the assist.
Right.
I can dig it. Yeah, I mean, I could see how people would be like, yeah, that's kind of unsportsmanlike, but I'm so over that kind of stuff,
Sure. I mean, and I think in any sort of friendly game or the Pro Bowl or something, I have no problem with it, but I don't know. It sort of rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, they were playing the Bills.
I would still have the opinion. Like, I didn't know Von Miller had done that to other people, and my opinion would still stand on that.
Really?
Yeah. I'm an equal opportunity hater.
No, I could see why somebody would consider it unsportsmanlike. I don't. I think it's just guys out there having fun. If I'm not watching the players have fun, I'm watching a boring league, and that was my issue that I've had with football over the past 2 years, is the sport was no longer fun to watch.
Yeah.
Quality of play has gone down over the years, as well as the amount of energy the players can expel on just enjoying the game, because at the end of the day they're playing a game.
Sure.
So it's some schoolyard stuff that got flagged. I understand why it got flagged. If people are upset about it, or if people like you feel it's of the opinion of I feel like that's unsportsmanlike, then I get it totally. I'm not going to agree with you, but I totally see it.
All right, let's put it on the board. That's 2 disagreements. Ding.
Yeah, we need to start making tallies. When we get a punch card, when we reach 10, something happens. I haven't decided what it is.
We fist fight.
Oh, man. That'll be our first live stream.
Oh, God. All right, that's everything I got to say about the Bills. So now you get to complain about things.
Do I have to?
No. If you can pull a ray of sunshine out of your game, then by all means.
Okay.
So the game ended.
Yeah, this is very difficult. So that's me extracting the ray of sunshine. Here's my ray of sunshine. Sean Kaiser has a better passer rating over his last 3 games than Johnny Manziel and Brandon Weeden on their first 3 starts.
Man,
that's it. That's all I got.
Whew. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Duke Johnson still looks amazing, and I think he's one of the most undervalued halfbacks in the league, and I've been saying that for years.
Okay.
That's another one. Kenny Britt actually made an attempt to play football, so got that going for us.
That helps when you're on the field.
Helps when you're on the field. Second and third stringers and practice squad players that got called up are, making catches, kind of.
That helps also. While playing football, catching the ball is good.
Yep, but pretty much all after that, all I have to say about the Browns is pretty much mostly negative. So we'll start from the top. Deshaun Kaiser looked like shit.
Yeah, I'm looking at his stats now, and less than 50% completion is not good.
Not good. I don't know what their game plan was going into this game, but Deshaun Kaiser obviously has accuracy issues. We've known about that since the offseason. It was something he struggled with, in preseason, but there was glimmers of hope during that Pittsburgh game in week 1 where it's like, dude, this guy's throwing a decent ball, maintaining a high percent of accuracy. We just got to work on, moving the ball downfield, limiting penalties, all the normal football-y bullshit. Last week, I was almost willing to chalk it up to the fact that the Ravens have one of the best secondaries in the league, and they got Deshaun Kaiser rattled. This week, they were playing the fucking Colts, and I saw the same Deshaun Kaiser this week that I saw last week, and he wasn't even pressured that much.
The Colts, renowned for their defense.
Oh, yeah. They've best defense. It's the best.
Oh, God. Let's not go there yet.
DeShone Kizer was only sacked once, which means he was probably only touched 2 or 3 times, because that's usually how that stat works. We weren't able to establish much on the ground. Once again, they've been talking about we got to reestablish the run game. It's not happening. We have the highest paid offensive line in the league, and we can't make a hole for Isaiah Crowell to scamper through. God bless Duke Johnson for only having 2 carries, but his touchdown carry, he channeled his inner Le'Veon Bell, and that was super awesome to watch. He sat behind his blocker, was going to cut to the outside, and was like, well, that's plugged up. So he cut back to the inside, Judy Ninja juked some dude, and then front flipped into the end zone. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I felt like I was being a little overly harsh on Indianapolis just there, and then I looked at their points per game stat so far this season, and
they're terrible.
There's only one team worse than them.
Look, if this tells you something, Cleveland Browns were favored over the Colts in this game.
Wow.
And that is the first time the Browns were favored over a home team in the past 3 years or some shit like that. That's how much they expected the Indianapolis Colts' defense to just maintain irrelevancy and pretty much allow DeShone Kizer and the offense to have a fighting chance, because the Colts have been so cupcake this season. But our defense made Jacoby Brissett look so good.
Yeah.
2 rushing touchdowns, 1 off of a goal line spin move scramble out of the pocket. Nobody was able to make the tackle on him. It was good blocking. There was a hold in there, but it didn't get called. That's just football. He only got sacked 3 times. Didn't put a lot of pressure on him, but when he did, he scrambled out of the pocket. The dude was very mobile. And he was 17 for 24 for 240-plus yards, had a receiving touchdown in there too. Our secondary pretty much let T.Y. Hilton do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Yeah, I saw that too.
A little tiny, comeback route that he turns around and takes to the house for 60 yards. Stuff like that, it's difficult. It's difficult for me right now.
I'm gonna ask you the question that you asked me last week. How is your running back your top receiver?
Because Duke Johnson is an animal, and he's our backup running. He's our third down back. He's not even our feature back. But when we need a receiving back in, it's like, get in there, Duke Johnson. You got hands. We might as well line him up in the slot and say, fuck it, you're a receiver now. If Ty Montgomery can play running back, Duke Johnson can play slot. They had Duke Johnson lined up in the slot during preseason, and he did fine. I was like, man, is this something we're going to see in the regular season? But then they kind of went back to just using him as a third down back because he's slippery as fuck, and he can catch the ball. I feel like if he became a feature back, if he was a feature back on any other team, I feel like he could rival the skill set of, like Kareem Hunt or David Johnson. He is that good. I just feel like his awareness on the field limits him a little bit, and the fact that we have Isaiah Crowell, Hugh Jackson prefers more of a in-your-face, smash-mouth running, and that's what Isaiah Crowell offers. He lowers his shoulder and keeps his legs churning until a hole kind of emerges. The problem is that skill set in the NFL, to be successful in that type of running, requires a lot more than your ability to run. Like your ability as a runner, you have to have the awareness to look for the holes, be able to follow your block, have an offensive line that can set blocks appropriately, have good blocking tight ends that can set the edge before the defense sets the edge if you do decide to reel it out to the outside. Isaiah Crowell is not slow, but he's more of a power back. He's a relatively balanced power back, but you're not going to see the same success out of him that you expect out of, Marshawn Lynch or somebody like that. He's not built that way. He's not that good of a runner.
Right.
I feel like I love Isaiah Crowell. I felt like he did fine last season. Just the way Duke Johnson is utilized, he offers more to the offense because he provides that dual threat. Duke Johnson had 200 or 100 and something yards from scrimmage, 104 yards from scrimmage. Isaiah Crowell had 12 carries for 44 yards, and was and had 2 receptions for 10 yards. So just what they offer the offense is so completely different. And Duke Johnson has always seen more production than Isaiah Crowell, but Isaiah Crowell is very one faceted. And I'm more of a dual threat back kind of dude. I love watching power backs do their thing, but who would you prefer to watch for an entire football game? David Johnson or Matt Forte?
Well,
I want to watch David Johnson.
yeah. Also,
I can't right now, but
also Matt Forte not playing super hot.
not playing super hot. To answer your question in a very roundabout way, Duke Johnson's really good at catching the football.
Fair. That's fair enough.
And nobody else was. I think a lot of that was Deshaun Kaiser's fault. His accuracy issue was put on display during this football game.
So,
considering
one might say that Deshaun Kaiser has been exposed again.
I think so, but this time in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Because, when he was exposed against the Ravens kept him under pressure, and they kept him on the ground. He was sacked like 7 times.
Right.
This game, there wasn't a lot of pressure up front. He just wasn't making passes. When you target your number one receiver 10 times, and he only gets his hands on the ball 5 times and only is able to catch 3, that means you're putting 50% of your passes on target to your number one receiver, who's also 6'4". He's a big dude.
Right.
Big catch radius.
Right.
And you mean to tell me you can only put 50% of the balls in that area?
Yeah. That doesn't help.
That's just straight up accuracy issue. That's all that is. Our secondary wasn't doing us any favors. We kind of suffered from that soft zone kind of bullshit that the Bills suffer from over the past couple of weeks. Our corners aren't that great. Our safeties are having to do a lot of the work. Although I will never say Joe Hayden would save our secondary, at least he was a Pro Bowl veteran presence to have there.
Right.
We're dealing with players that are obviously not comfortable covering number one receivers. When's the last time you heard T.Y. Hilton getting 150 yards receiving? With Andrew Luck on the field, I'm sure it happened, but the secondary let Jacoby Brissett just throw all over him.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to spread the ball around. T.Y. Hilton got 150 yards. Next highest receiver was Dante Moncrief with 44.
Yeah, that's a bit of a disparity, one might say.
Yeah, that means to me you can't cover their number one receiver, so they're going to keep throwing it to their number one receiver, and it worked.
Yep.
And it was a very frustrating game to watch for me. And I can't wait until Myles Garrett gets back on the field so he can just whatever it is that he does. I don't know if he's just going to bring magic on the field with him and suddenly Cleveland's going to be good again, or even if he just comes on the field and it's just something I can look forward to watching. I was looking forward to watching to see what Deshaun Kaiser can do. 1 out of 3 games being like having 1 out of 3 good games is not something I look forward to on Sundays. So at least if Myles Garrett starts playing again, I can look forward to him attempting to bury quarterbacks. Hey, we may have lost the game, but did you see how Myles Garrett tried to eat that dude's face? So it was bad. Once again, bad football.
Okay.
Are we done here?
Yeah, we can be done here. Let's talk about other things because this was let's call it an upset week. Several teams won in weird situations.
I just want to say one thing since we're moving on to the rest of the league.
Go on.
This entire week of football has made me feel like I don't know shit about football. I've been watching football since I was a fucking kid, and I have never seen I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't understand how Jacksonville beat the Ravens so bad.
Right.
I don't understand how the Rams and the 49ers had a shootout game when you have Brian Hoyer as the quarterback on one side of the ball. I don't understand how the Texans with a rookie quarterback brought it within 3 in Gillette Stadium. I didn't even know it was possible to kick a 61-yard field goal.
All right,
I've seen the legends of it.
Hold on. Don't run down the whole list before we actually discuss any of these things.
I'm just prefacing, man, this week was nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know what football is anymore.
Especially coming off of last week with all of the low-scoring games to turn around and have the kind of games that we saw.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
I mean, we can talk about that real quick since you also brought up the shootout game. So last week we had a bunch of games that, like, a lot of them didn't even score 20 points combined, or one team scored 17 and the other scored like 7 or something like that. Out of the games played, 7 of them had 20 or more points scored by each side. Two of those 7 had 30 or more scored by each side. And out of all of the games, there were 9 games where there were 50 or more combined points scored by both teams.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, even the Cleveland game turned into a shootout.
Yep. Yeah.
And Cleveland was getting their ass kicked.
Yep. I mean, and like let's talk about the Rams real quick, because there's a thing that makes me sad.
What's that?
Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins both go for over 100 yards in that game.
Yeah, that was I actually got to watch the Rams 49ers game, and although I am not yielding on my position that the Rams are the next shootout team because they were playing the 49ers, man, was that fucking impressive.
Sure. Yeah.
That was a fun game to watch. You know, it started off a little sloppy for San Francisco, but that was just a fun game to watch.
Yeah, and the Rams do currently lead the league in scoring with 107 points.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with the numbers.
Yeah.
What I can argue with is the quality of teams they've been playing. But beyond that, you know, Jared Goff turned it up. Brian Hoyer, man, I wish he played for that when we played like that when we still had him.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley looked like rookie year Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
You know, Todd Gurley was half the reason why one of my dudes I'm playing fantasy with even stayed in that game.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a straight up fun Thursday night game to watch against two teams that I would normally not really care about.
Right, and it's especially important, especially for the ratings of the league, because when you put games like this on Thursday, it's a primetime game, it's a big money spot. When you put the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers on the marquee bill for a Thursday night game, 8 times out of 10, everybody and their mother are just like, I'm not watching that. Like, it's going to be bad football.
Right.
But it was good football. You know, it was very poor for defensive coordinators around the world.
Right.
But the Rams and the 49ers, they went out there and put on a show, man. Like, Pierre Garçon had a great game, and it still looked like Carlos Hyde kind of remembered how to run the football.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley had a highlight game. It was crazy. And then, you know, San Francisco trying to really make a comeback in that last quarter. You know, they scored 19 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, when you get down to, you know, that last quarter and all of a sudden somebody comes roaring back, it keeps things interesting.
Absolutely, because there could have been plenty of times watching that game, especially with how hot LA came out the gate. LA Rams came out the gate. You could have easily turned off the game and be like, well, this is going to be over because 49ers don't have the firepower to come back from that.
Yep.
But then they did.
Yep. And I think here's an interesting stat that might tend towards more interesting football games just in general. Time of possession, 29 minutes, 43 seconds to 30 minutes, 17 seconds. Almost exactly half and half.
Yeah. I think if San Francisco did a little better job of protecting the ball during that game, they could have won. I mean, they could have won regardless, but
right.
Throwing the pick on the first pass of the game.
Yeah, another former Bills player making plays.
Right, and then LA turns it into a touchdown like what, 1 play later, 2 plays later?
They scored within the first 12 seconds of the game. So yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah. It's like interception and then give it to Todd Gurley, touchdown.
Yep. So moving on into the rest of the week, let's talk about upset week, where some teams beat other teams that were looking good. So we'll start out with the heavy hitter. Just go for it, Keith. Just go.
The Jags and the Ravens?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. What else?
That's one of the games this week.
Hey, Baltimore.
It was an anomaly.
Welcome to Wembley, motherfucker.
I mean, you don't come into Wembley Stadium and expect to take down the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. That's like their surrogate home or whatever.
They are actually undefeated there.
Yeah, no, totally. That wasn't a joke. That was just making a funny voice.
What? You think just because I make this tone of voice that I'm not being serious? This is serious business.
Serious as a heart attack. Dude, that's one of those games. I don't know what happened, man. When did Blake Bortles decide he wanted to be a quarterback again? When did Joe Flacco decide that? Well, I guess he decided that, during the off season, but
So, like, they play soccer and tennis and stuff in Wembley Stadium. I didn't know they could program a scoreboard to make numbers that big on it, but
right.
44-0 is kind of a lot.
Well, it's 44-7.
Sorry, you're right.
Last quarter.
You're right. I forgot. Now I seem dumb. Listen, it's garbage time. Come on. It was 44-0
that was totally garbage
until
time.
the last 3 minutes or something.
Yeah, they were in prevent. They're just like, you guys do whatever you want. I don't care.
Dude,
I thought Joe Flacco being pulled from the game was pretty funny.
I was gonna say, who thought in 2017 we would say Ryan Mallett had more passing touchdowns for the Baltimore Ravens than Joe Flacco?
Never in my life. More passing touchdowns, higher average per attempt, more passing yards, higher completion rating.
I mean, granted, by the fourth quarter, that whole game had basically reverted back to a preseason game because everybody was like, "Yeah, this is over."
Yep. I mean, hell, even Chad Henne had a couple of tosses in there for Jacksonville.
Yeah, and Jacksonville didn't. Nobody had crazy high yardage or percentages or anything. They just scored every single time.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those things where somebody was having a crazy blockbuster game. It was just every time they touched the ball, they were in the end zone. There was no way to keep them out of the end zone. What happened? This is why this game just throws me through a loop. It's an anomaly to me. This is the same Ravens team that dismantled offenses the past two previous weeks as far as their defense goes. Straight up dismantled them.
So here's a question. What were the previous two teams that they played?
Well, Cincinnati and Cleveland.
What is Cincinnati and Cleveland's combined record?
Combined record?
Yeah.
1-5.
0-6.
0-6. 0-6. Yeah.
Yeah. So
but it's the Jaguars. They were 1-1.
So let's get back to
coming into that game.
Let's get back to the Bills conversation. Have the Ravens played a real team yet?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, yeah, it's insane. That game was insane. I woke up and seeing Facebook posts from people in Baltimore because I forgot that there was a game that early, or I just was totally unaware. Just people being like, "This game is a fucking travesty. I'm turning this off." And I'm just like, "What is happening?" And I looked up the score on my phone. And I was like, somebody screwed up. This number is wrong.
Right. When I got the text from you, you were just like, "Dear God, this game." And I was half awake, watching it. Or I was half awake and I flicked it on, and I was flabbergasted. Real team or not, what the Baltimore Ravens did against Cincinnati and Cleveland was impressive. And for none of that to transfer to the game against Jacksonville, there was no pressure whatsoever on Blake Bortles. Everybody was just clicking. It was like Jacksonville was just a machine that game. There was nothing spectacular. They were just kept steadily moving forward. Every single time they got their hands on the ball, they were able to score.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen the Baltimore Ravens in any facet of the game be bullied the way they were bullied. Never.
Yep.
Never seen it. If I did, if they have been over the past couple of years, I missed it. But I don't understand football, RJ. I don't know what football is.
Yeah, if I told you Blake Bortles' stat line minus his 4 touchdowns, 20 for 31 for 244 yards is mediocre at best.
Yeah, it's about average, from a team that has the weapons at their disposal. That's an average stat line that I would expect.
Sorry, it's journeyman-like.
Sure. It's that guy. It's a game manager stat line.
Yeah, but
somebody that will go in and they won't lose the game. Where did the 4 touchdowns come from?
So they came from incredible field position off of the turnovers and I think one really good punt return.
Oh, absolutely.
So, they easily won the field position game and then just kept rolling. Hey, hats off to Jacksonville. That was a real dumb way to start off a Sunday.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on them. See if they can replicate. If they can replicate, keep an eye on Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Because the NFC is kind of up for debate right now.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Let's move on to the next game that was sort of the more crazy one. I think the third one we're going to talk about isn't as nuts, but the Jets beat a team.
The Jets beat a team. They have fulfilled the prophecy of returning Cleveland to their glory of 32 on the power rankings.
And they won like kind of convincingly. It was 20-0 basically until garbage time.
Not only did they win a game.
Yeah, the game ended up 20-6, and it wasn't even like they kicked 2 field goals. It was a touchdown and then a missed extra point attempt just to really cap it off with zeros on the scoreboard. So
absolutely, their rushing game was shit. I've never seen Jay Ajayi run for under 50 yards, let alone under 20.
Oh God, was it really that low? I was still wow, 16 yards. That's bad.
Jay Cutler ran for more than half of the yards than Jay Ajayi was able to produce.
Also, what's up with like rushing games the last couple of weeks where it's not even like, oh, you know, if you don't break 100, you at least get like 70 or something. It seems like if you're not breaking 100 yards, you're walking away with like 30 or like 28 against a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I think teams have a bigger tendency to abandon the run nowadays.
It's entirely possible. I mean, when you're down and you've got to move the ball quickly, the running game, you know, not known for stopping the clock and saving time.
Right. And what's the quickest and most efficient way to move the ball downfield? Throw it.
Yep.
It's not every day that your running back's going to break a big crazy run for 60 yards. You can't rely on that.
Punt it and hope that the guy catching it fumbles it and then recover it. That's the most efficient way.
Yeah.
But
sure,
totally unreliable.
If it's Madden and there's a hit stick.
Yeah, true. So, yeah, I mean, Miami didn't... I don't know. I don't know what's going on in some of these games where they let these quarterbacks throw 40 times and they only complete half of them.
I don't get football.
I guess the week where we felt unqualified.
Right. Like, I'm looking at these numbers and I just don't understand it. I don't understand what happened. Either players played really way too good or way too bad, or the coaching, like you said, how did the OC or the head coach in Miami keep calling plays that allowed Jay Cutler to throw the ball?
Yeah, I don't know.
He had 44 pass attempts, and you only gave Jay Ajayi 11 attempts to run the ball?
That seems like poor planning.
Like, Jay Ajayi is one of the best running backs at making something out of nothing, and you only let him touch the ball 11 times? I don't understand that.
Yeah, and the Jets do have still a pretty stout, you know, defensive front. The Bills learned that when they played them. Yeah, I don't know.
So I'll just be back down here at 32nd with Cincinnati at 31st.
Yeah,
just hanging out.
How's that?
Yeah.
How's that AFC North going?
It's, you know,
up for grabs.
It's still technically up for grabs. So there's always that, because Pittsburgh lost this week.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that? I didn't look much
Might
in the
as
Pittsburgh
well.
game. Go on.
Might as well. To the Bears, RJ. To the goddamn Bears.
Right.
I don't understand football.
I was going to talk about them later because they're in my last minute segment of like a lot of these games also ended very abruptly.
Oh, you have a segment dedicated to that?
Oh yeah. Trust me, I got this shit covered. So I guess one more upset week game. The Washington Redskins beat Marshawn Lynch's Raiders.
And beat them
convincingly. Like, the Raiders get 150 total yards of offense and 32 of them are rushing.
Right? It wasn't even a good football game.
No. I mean, I guess it's one of the opposite sides for this week where it's, you know, if you're a defensive coordinator, like, you were into it.
You know, the Washington Redskins, their defense looked great.
Yep.
You know, Derek Carr Oakland in general has a relatively high-powered offense.
Yep, for sure.
But once again, I don't know if it was just Oakland having limited time with the ball, but Marshawn Lynch only touched the ball 6 times.
Yeah, that's not enough.
But Derek Carr threw the ball 31 times.
Yep.
Connecting 19.
Yep.
His QBR was 3.5. He had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and we're only going to let Marshawn touch the ball 6 times. That stuff doesn't make fucking sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm surprised Marshawn didn't have something in his contract that was like, yo, man, I touch the ball at least 10 times a game.
Right. If I don't get 10 carries, you give me 20 grand.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right. It's
But
like
even
it's
with
like,
the receiving core.
It's like the opposite of a workout bonus.
Right. But even with the receiving core, they were just stagnant. Probably, Derek Carr just didn't look good. He just didn't look good at all.
Yeah, like
And the secondary.
none of your receivers gets even 50 yards. That's pretty bad.
Washington. I mean, the secondary, no doubt, locked down on Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously showed. And this is the first sign of weakness we've seen out of the Raiders all season, which once again reaffirms the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to take the AFC this year.
Yep. And if I can do my Mooney impression real quick, Derek Carr makes Kirk Cousins look like Tom Brady.
I mean, he did. 3 touchdowns, almost 400 yards passing. It was a really good game on both sides. This is one of those games where people are just like, pay Kirk Cousins, quit this franchise tag shit.
Right. This is the you like that moment for this year, at least so far.
Yeah, it's probably the best game that Kirk Cousins has ever thrown as a Washington Redskin.
Probably. Well, I mean, he did throw a bunch of touchdowns that one time.
I mean, he does that occasionally.
Yeah.
That's why they keep franchise tagging him.
It's true.
It's like, we want to see consistent touchdown numbers before we actually give you a contract. So until then, we're not going to give you a choice to what team you go to, and we're going to pay you this set standard of money.
Right.
It's like okay.
I guess.
Franchise, yeah, I guess. It's not like you have a choice. Franchise tag is such a crock of shit.
Well, yeah.
But that's a different conversation for a different time.
Also, I don't have a huge opinion on it. I'll just go, well, yeah. Pay that man his money.
Yeah, somebody pay the poor bastard. Well, rich bastard.
Yeah, right. Okay, so before we go into the last minute games, just, going over the games that we've looked at. The way the AFC West played this week, after being like the high-powered division that everybody was saying is going to run over everybody, like only one team won, and it was a divisional game against the Chargers.
Yeah.
So Kansas City wins, the Chargers lose, but that's a divisional game. I guess they could have tied. That's still possible. Oakland loses,
Sure.
And Denver loses to Buffalo. So kind of a bad week for the AFC West just in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, great week for the Chiefs because that put them definitively on top.
Right.
But one thing I can say about that Chiefs-Chargers game is Alex Smith kind of limited in his role in that game. He had a couple of touchdown hookups, but they were relatively short field touchdowns.
Right.
Only threw for 150 yards. Kareem Hunt, once again, my dude, he saved me in fantasy this week. 172 yards rushing. He had 11 yards receiving. He had 180 yards from scrimmage. I love that man.
Oh, man. So this was not a segment that I had written in, but I just pulled this up. Do you know what the current playoff standings are if we were to do it today?
What's that?
Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville for the AFC.
Oh man. Let's do it. Let's just end the season right now. I want to watch that.
The NFC seemingly makes a little bit more sense with Atlanta, Philly, Detroit, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Washington.
Yeah, it makes a little more sense.
Although notably no Green Bay, no Seattle, no New Orleans.
Yeah, what's going on with Seattle, man?
I think they lost all their wide receivers. They're in the post Super Bowl era slump that really only Tom Brady has been able to avoid.
I don't know. They've been kind of slumping for a while now.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it's the fall off of, well, we don't have Jermaine Kearse anymore. We don't have Marshawn Lynch anymore.
I mean, they still got Doug Baldwin. Look, all they had to do was hand the ball off to Marshawn, and nobody would have cared, because then they would have won that Super Bowl, and nobody would have cared if they started sucking, because at least they won it.
It's true.
But no, Pete Carroll thinks he knows stuff. That's why he's a professional coach, and I'm sitting at a desk yelling into a microphone.
Yeah, right.
Although he's just standing, like, on the sideline yelling into a microphone.
It's true. It's true. He is.
Maybe we're just an analog. All right, I'm gonna stop.
Okay. So, I mean, let's talk about how some of these games closed out. You already brought up the Bears win. Bears winning
Yes.
on the first possession with a touchdown in overtime. So
Yes.
that's, we changed the rules up a couple of years ago to make it that if somebody scores a field goal, the other team, gets another shot. And I think that was a good change. But, it still leaves the backbreaker of a touchdown. I still think it'd be kind of cool if we went to college rules where you kind of start at like the 20 and you just get
God, I hate college overtime.
Really?
Hate it. Yeah, I hate it.
I don't know. I think it's
because there's
I don't watch it very often, but I think it's a fun concept. So I guess my view on it is kind of skewed.
well, it removes an entire aspect of the game because you pretty much start just short of the red zone.
Right.
So you're at least walking away with a field goal. And if you kick a field goal and the other person gets the ball, they can really just sit on the ball and just kick another field goal. And the game doesn't stop until somebody misses the goddamn field goal.
I mean, is there no time limit at that point?
No, I'm pretty sure there's like a tie or time limit or something, unless it's in postseason.
Okay.
But it removes an entire aspect of your playbook. It pretty much makes half of your playbook non-existent because you don't have to go the length of the field.
Hey, remember that time Donovan McNabb didn't know that you could tie a football game? That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
All right, but enough talking about, I guess, bad overtime rules. Yeah, I mean they win on a first possession touchdown, and
yeah, that's not the first time that that's happened to the Steelers.
Right.
Either since the change of the new rules. Because I distinctly remember a certain Denver Broncos team, quarterbacked by Tim Tebow, that hooked up on a slant on the first possession of overtime and knocked the Steelers out of the playoff.
Right.
And I distinctly remember walking up to my mom and just shouting in her face. For people that don't know, my mom is a Pittsburgh fan. I'm a Cleveland fan. I hate her pretty much from August to February. She keeps asking me to come over for dinner. I keep telling her I'm busy, but in reality, I just don't want to look at her face.
Oh, man.
She's 2-1. I'm 0-3. Can't deal with that shit right now. Got too much stuff going on.
Mom, I'll swing by for the moonshine, but that's as long as you're seeing me for.
That's it. I'm going to come pick up my supply and be like, pieces and deuces. I'm going to go back and be sad at my house.
Drunk and sad.
Drunk and sad. That, as a Cleveland fan, there is no other way.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You can empathize. Fan.
Yep, my waves are still pretty much the same. Just checking.
Just checking. What about mine? Because I've made a very consistent attempt to avoid saying and
I don't know. I haven't seen your waveform yet. I'll figure it out tomorrow.
There's a couple.
So the Lions lose their game in the closing seconds because they didn't have any timeouts left, and that guy got tackled at like the 6-inch line.
Oh yeah, when Golden Tate got knocked, like literally knee was down,
Yep.
and he was like 2 inches from breaking the plane.
Yep.
Yeah, that was intense, especially because the initial call on the field was a touchdown.
Right.
And because they didn't have any timeouts, there was 8 seconds left on the clock, but there's a 10-second burn off.
Yep. Yep.
There's a 10-second runoff if you don't have any timeouts because it was a long play, and they were just like, well, the average team cannot get a playoff within 10 seconds.
Right, and they only had 8 seconds left.
Like that. So literally the ref walked up and was just like, the ruling on the field was overturned,
and the game is over.
Yeah, the receiver didn't cross the plane. There by rule, there's a 10-second run out. Game's over, and then everybody was just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where nobody really thinks about the rules like that. The game was called beautifully at the end.
Right.
When it came to that call, they did exactly what the rules say.
Yeah, it was the correct call.
The spirit of the rule is, hey, it's very unlikely you guys would have been able to get up and be able to run a play within those 10 seconds.
Right.
So, sucks. You should have saved the timeout.
It was funny because, it's all scoring plays and stuff like that are reviewed by the New York office this season.
Yeah.
And so they had Dean Blandino on the phone, and he was like, well, this is the correct call if they do that. And the commentators were just like, yeah, you're in Detroit. Would you be brave enough to do that? And he was like,
Right.
It's the right call?
Yeah. I have to.
Yeah.
If you want to keep your job, you're making the call. Just make sure you run to the tunnel after you say the game's over.
Right.
Do not wait around.
Right. Yeah, let's speed up. No, I don't need to shower or change after this. Let's just get in the Uber. I'll take a shower at the airport.
Just take off. It reminds me pretty distinctly of pretty much it was a Cleveland home game the last season before they closed the Brown Stadium and opened First Energy Stadium. And of course, Cleveland Brown Stadium back in the day was notorious for being a really terrible place to play because the fans were ruthless. So there was a bullshit call that pretty much cost Cleveland the game. So the fans go fucking ape shit.
I've seen this highlight.
Right, so they start like pelting stuff into the field and stuff. So the referees go, hey, this game's over. We're calling the game because it's not safe and blah, blah, blah. So they start pelting stuff at the referees while people are trying to walk to the tunnel and stuff. And then the NFL gets on the phone and goes, what the hell are you doing? They have to finish the game. So they go out and take a couple of knees, and then they're walking backstage or back through the tunnel, and people are pelting them with more shit.
Cleveland Browns, part of the reason that we have aluminum beer bottles now, because they don't hurt as much as glass.
Right. It is no longer. They consider at First Energy Stadium, they consider dog biscuits contraband.
Wow.
Because they would notoriously pelt the opposing team as they're walking through the tunnel with dog treats.
At least Bills fans only throw dildos on the field.
Oh man, I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Speaking of the Patriots getting dildos thrown at them, they won in the final 30 seconds to squash the hopes of Houston fans everywhere.
Oh, sure. Dude, that game was intense, man.
Another kind of shootout.
Yeah, I really wanted Houston to win that game.
I think we all...
Not only for...
I think everybody who isn't a Patriots fan wanted Houston to win that game.
Sure. Not only for that sake, but also the sake of being able to say, hey, I'm Deshaun Watson, and I'm the only rookie quarterback to ever beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick at Gillette Stadium. That's a big deal.
I mean, Tom Brady threw a game-winning touchdown, surprising no one.
Yeah, no shit, right? Tom Brady also still doesn't look old, so that's good.
We'll see. It's a long season.
He's a little...
It's a long season, and it's not cold out yet.
Yep, he also got hit a lot by Houston.
Yeah.
Fucking, like, J.J. Watt was on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Jadeveon Clowney was on a mission.
Yo, what's up with Jadeveon Clowney and getting interceptions and running like a maniac?
Right?
Like 2 weeks in a row, I look at Jadeveon Clowney and I'm like, no, you're not allowed to move that fast. You're not.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah, that dude can move. He got wheels. I bet you he's pretty wore out by the end of the play though. Like he's that guy you see on the sideline with like his helmet off and like his head back with an oxygen tank, just like.
It's like Jadeveon Clowney versus Myles Garrett for fastest big guy in the league.
Oh, that'd be great to watch.
Well, get ready for the Pro Bowl this year, probably during the skills test or whatever.
Man, I hope somebody besides Joe Thomas makes the fucking Pro Bowl this year.
Yeah, we'll see. So we had two games that ended on field goals. We'll talk about the Packers one first.
Congratulations to Aaron Rodgers for his first overtime win ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's not me exaggerating. He's never won in overtime until this past weekend.
Huh.
And he didn't even have to do it. Mason Crosby did it.
So that field goal set up by Geronimo Allison, part of my all NFL funny names team that also includes HaHa Clinton Dix, Taco Charlton, and Bakari Rambo. So...
Is it just me, or is Bakari Rambo literally the best name in the NFL?
I mean, I just want to see. I want to see the faux Vietnam War movie with Bakari Rambo and Geronimo Allison as like their buddy cop adventure into the jungle to take down the terrorists.
Can we make this happen?
I hope
Who do I need to write?
I hope so. Probably the NFL Players Association.
Oh, man.
Hey, man, they're easier to work with than the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, it seems like it.
So
We'll see how the next talks go.
yeah. So yeah, a field goal for Aaron Rodgers, which first overtime win. I'm surprised by that for sure.
Yeah, that was the first stat when I was listening to the game on the radio. The first stat when it went to overtime, of course, they were just like, free football. Did you know that Aaron Rodgers has never won a game in overtime? And I was just thinking, really?
Yeah.
Like, this is an all-pro MVP level quarterback, and he's never won a game in overtime.
Also, it's not like he's only played 3 seasons or something. He's
right.
He's definitely been around for a while.
He's been around the block. And you mean to tell me his entire career he's never won an overtime game?
Yeah.
I mean, his sample size is small-ish, I guess. I think that was his 7th overtime game, so he's 1 for 7 in overtime.
And then the last overtime game that we've got is the Eagles, who, like you said at the beginning, you didn't know you could kick a 61-yard field goal unless you're in that movie where you've got an overly strong leg because you're just kicking a garbage truck all the time.
Yeah, I've heard about the mythical 60-plus yard field goal in Legend. What still impresses me further is the fact that 61-yard field goal didn't break the record for longest field goal in regulation.
No, I think it's like 65. I think Janikowski did it.
Yeah, that's nuts to me.
Yeah, it's far.
He now has the longest field goal in Eagles franchise history.
That makes sense, yeah.
But it's funny, if you listen to the interview with Doug Peterson after the game, he said when Elliott kicked that ball, it sounded like a cannon going off because he kicked the ball so fucking hard.
Wow.
And did you actually watch the kick?
I've seen the kick, yeah. It basically sneaks into the bottom right corner.
Yeah, you want to talk about your heart stopping. When that thing releases off the foot and you think, man, I got to get the distance, and it's hugging that post really, really hard. And then it just sneaks right in. I bet you everybody on that field had a heart attack.
Well, and he's got 1 second left on the clock.
Sure, that's it. If you miss it, that's the game. And you're a rookie.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, he's a rookie. Like, that's way to establish yourself as a kicker, man. Like,
certainly
he's been evidently he's been having a really good season.
Well,
the sheer fact that the Giants were even
okay, they would have gone into overtime, but still.
Sure, but why would you want to?
God,
especially
and the Giants scored all of their points in the fourth quarter. Way to just snub them on that one.
Right, I was about to say, like, why would you want to go into overtime against an offense that has obviously found their rhythm?
Right.
24 points in the fourth quarter to bring it to a tie when the Eagles, they weren't bullying the Giants for the entirety of the game, but they pretty much had the steering wheel.
Did you see the video with Carson Wentz on the sideline saying, if he hits this, I'll give him my game check?
Yeah. I want to see proof.
Yeah.
Sure it didn't happen.
Yeah, I want to, yes, we better see that social media post.
Right. I need to add Carson Wentz on Twitter because I need to see that shit.
Yep. So I got a couple more things to talk about, I think. We already talked about the big points games, so let's talk about fake punts because we saw a couple of those. The Jags up 37-0 went and pulled a fake punt, and it succeeded. Is that running up the score? Is that...
Yes, it is. That's some Madden level, like, don't give a shit, we have this game wrapped up, like, what difference would it make stuff.
Yeah.
It's a proof of concept, You can't practice plays at full speed during practice, but when you're blowing out the Ravens the way they were, why not?
Right. And then
let's practice this play at speed.
Yeah. And then the other one was Miami, obviously behind at the time, tries a passing play because the Jaguars one was a running play, and that failed horribly.
Yeah.
Turned around and threw an interception instead of punting. It failed horribly.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Never give Matt Hack the ball in his hands ever again.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at the chart and I'm like, who is this guy along with Jay Cutler? Oh, right.
Right, that's their punter. Like, at least if you're doing a fake field goal, you have a backup quarterback, if not your starter, on the field plays holding.
Right.
So if you want to do a fake rollout with the placeholder, it's a quarterback. We've seen some impressive fakes over the years. Hecker was like the king of the punt fake for a while. But when it always seems like whenever a punt fake pass goes poorly for the punter, it goes horribly. Like this guy's never right. Like this guy's never thrown a football before in his entire fucking career. It was humorous though. I like watching stuff like that.
Yeah.
It makes Sports Center interesting in the mornings.
Certainly. And, well, I don't know that it's not top 10 quality because most of those are silly goofs and this was just a bad play. But we'll see.
Yeah, that might end up on some Randy Moss. Come on, man.
Yeah, that's more likely.
I need to watch the NFL Network because I miss me some Randy Moss.
I just remember Randy Moss 2 years ago during the Hall of Fame game, or not 2 years ago, this last year, in his debut on the NFL Network, where the Hall of Fame game got canceled because they couldn't get like the pellets that were supposed to be cleaning up the field off fast enough, and he was just sitting there like, man, somebody needs to get fired for this. And I was like,
yeah,
damn, Randy, this is your first time on TV and you're already calling for people's heads. Like, maybe cool it for a week.
You got to establish yourself, bro.
I kind of only have one more thing to talk about, and then we got another thing that I kind of don't want to talk about, but we should probably talk about still. So the last thing I do want to talk about is 3-0 versus 0-3. At this point, we only have 2 undefeated teams left, Atlanta and Kansas City, and they don't play each other. And then we've got a handful of 0-3 teams, the Chargers, the Browns, the Bengals, the Giants, and the 49ers. So
sure.
A lot of NFC representation there, and
a little bit,
and a lot of AFC North.
Yeah. Look, man. If there's one thing you can always bank on the AFC North for, it's consistency.
I think I have one other note here that says the Chargers, out of those 3 losses, have already played 2 divisional games, which puts them pretty far behind the 8 ball if the entire division goes and turns around still.
Oh, so is Cleveland.
Yeah. Wow.
Our first 2 games of the season, Pittsburgh and Ravens.
Come on, man.
We can't turn around?
Come on, man.
You're saying we can't turn it around. I'm inclined to believe you.
Yeah.
I trust your judgment on this one.
Hey, if the playoffs started right now, you know where Cleveland would be?
Not in the playoffs.
16th.
Hey, it's not bad.
It is. It's the worst. It's literally the worst.
Well, when you say it that way.
Yeah, I did say it that way.
Well, so shut up.
I mean, we expected Kansas City to be good. Atlanta's been good for the last few years. Do you think any of the 0-3 teams do scrape something together? Like the 49ers clearly proved that at least against some defenses they can put up points.
I think you're going to see a little bit of a turnaround when it comes to like the Giants. I don't think they're going to come around to a point where they're serious playoff contenders, but they got Odell Beckham back on the field. The offense didn't look anywhere nearly as stagnant as it did over the past 2 weeks. Hey, they scored touchdowns. Look at there.
That's true.
So they have the potential to win some games. As far as relevancy goes, I can't see any of the 0-3 teams right now being a factor. If I had to bet on one of them,
it'd have to be the Chargers.
It'd have to be the Chargers.
Right. You play against those AFC West teams, that doesn't help you. And then you lose that game in Miami last week where basically if they hit a couple more field goals, they win still.
Right. So they have Phillip Rivers. He's a veteran. He didn't look that great this week, but
they still have Antonio Gates.
They still got Antonio Gates. Travis Benjamin lit it up. I think they have a possibility to get something rolling later in the season. The rest of the 0-3 teams, I think they're going to sit exactly where they are. The Bengals kind of showed up against the Packers, but the Packers have been dealing with some issues on defense over the past 2 seasons. A.J. Green got some love, which was nice for my fantasy team. The Bengals have already started out way under expectation, especially with the talent they have on defense. So it's very possible that they may have a little turnaround and stuff. The only teams that I can confidently say won't have any significant turnaround this year are the fucking Browns and the 49ers. Because, yes, the 49ers obviously showed some capacity to score points in volume. They were playing the Rams. Rams have a decent front seven. They have literally a non-existent secondary. And it's also the 49ers. We got to take it week to week with this team, especially with Brian Hoyer slinging the ball.
I was going to say, they still have Brian Hoyer under center, so you've got kind of an asterisk there to begin with no matter what.
Yep. As soon as you say, hey, Brian Hoyer's starting, you don't know what Brian Hoyer you're going to get. At least I'm getting some consistency right now from my Cleveland Browns, because Deshaun Kaiser has been consistently terrible for the past 2 weeks.
Right. Not the kind of consistency you're necessarily looking for. It's kind of like a
not one that
it's like a slimy, viscous consistency, but at least it's uniform.
Right. It's one of those things where if I word it appropriately, it makes me feel a little bit better. Like I tell people right now, Cleveland has a perfect record.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got a perfect season.
Mm-hmm. Almost had one last year.
Unblemished by victory. God, I should go back in time and make unblemished by victory Detroit Lions shirts.
Oh man. We could probably still get away with that.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how things pan out. I don't think diss merch is the way for us to make our big bucks. Also, we won't be able to go to Detroit at that point. Not that I was planning on going to Detroit, but
yeah, who would want to?
Hey, don't go to East Cleveland today, but at least they're not Detroit. All right, so we got one more thing to talk about, and it's a big orange blotch on this podcast that I really don't want to talk about, but we're gonna.
It's kind of important.
We talked about it week 1, and I didn't think we would really have to talk about it again, but when protests in the NFL grow from 10 players participating to 250 over the course of a weekend.
It's kind of nuts, right?
Apparently it's not about race. I don't know, man. I don't want this. I still don't want this thing to turn into a political podcast, because that's a whole nother thing for me to do somewhere else in my dark nesting corner where I just scream into a pile of pillows on an hourly basis.
Sure. Well, here's my thought process on the whole thing, and I'll keep it short and sweet, because I don't want to drone on about this much longer than I have to either. I already get enough toxicity from Facebook and Twitter and shit about what's going on in the NFL right now. So I'm just going to lay out a couple of facts that people can mull over. Fact number 1. Peaceful protest in the NFL is protected speech under the First Amendment. Fact number 2. The president making the statements he made on the Twitter, also protected speech under the First Amendment, as long as he's not using his position to influence the decisions, actually influence the decisions of a privately owned entity in the way of forced patriotism.
I mean, he did kind of say that they should be fired.
Well, offering an opinion and actively influencing, in my opinion, are relatively different. I'm not saying he's right, because he's not.
I'm just glad he doesn't own the Bills right now. Yeah,
that would suck. Half your team would be fired.
Yeah.
Dude, literally the Steelers would have Alejandro Villanueva.
Yeah, that's
and that's it.
Well, to be fair, we don't know if those guys were kneeling or not, because they were all in the locker room. So
they weren't even in the locker room; they were in the tunnel.
Oh well, yeah, they weren't on the field.
They were not on the field. I think, as the representative, the figurehead of a powerful first world nation, the last thing out of your mouth should be referring to professional football players as SOBs because they choose to exercise their First Amendment right. So it's just one of those things for me. I don't care anymore. I just don't. But what's going to end up happening is somebody else is going to say something stupid, and then it's going to be addressed all over the internet, and someone is going to ask my opinion, or I'm going to have to feel obligated to inject my opinion in some way, and I just don't like doing that with stuff like this.
Right.
My opinion is not important. It's just not. What is important is the fact that these players are not protesting in disrespect or defiance of the American flag or the national anthem. They are protesting for racial inequality in the United States, police brutality, all this fun stuff. These are facts.
Yep.
And the fact that the president can sit back and in good conscience blast these players for exercising their right when he has obviously, over the past 2 years, had no problem with doing some controversial shit and saying some dumb stuff and exercising his right to free speech in a way that is, borderline incorrigible for the President of the United States to be saying these things is astonishing to me. And the fact that he even feels like it's worth his time, especially with what's going on in the United States and its territories right now, is ridiculous to me. It's absolutely ridiculous. I do understand.
Did you see the Wanda Sykes tweet?
Which one was that?
Hey, NFL players, can y'all go down to Puerto Rico and take a knee so that the president pays attention to the shit that actually matters for once?
Sure, absolutely. That's funny and relevant.
Yep.
A friend of mine posted on Facebook today, I wonder if Donald Trump just realized that Puerto Ricans are American citizens.
Apparently, he knows a lot of Puerto Ricans. He has a lot of Puerto Rican friends, which is a great way to start off any explanation, because you always want to start off by being like, "Hey, I'm friends with X ethnicity."
Right. It's like me saying something inherently racist to black people and then going, "No, it's cool. I got a black friend."
Right. Exactly. It's the racial equivalent of everything before the butt is pointless.
Right. The only point I'll make as far as all this is I believe wholeheartedly that people have the right to exercise their First Amendment right to free speech. People need to understand, though, that utilizing your right to free speech does not exclude you from the consequences for what you say, as long as the consequences do not further infringe on your right to free speech.
Yep.
If you say something dumb in the name of free speech and your boss fires you, that is legal.
Mm-hmm.
If you, like in the Colin Kaepernick thing, if you do not get a job because you said something or performed an action that your potential employers do not agree with, that is not illegal.
Right.
So I feel like people need to slow down a little bit in this conversation and just remember the facts.
Yeah.
Everyone is just exercising their right to free speech.
Yep, and I agree with all of that fully. I just don't have any concise way to describe it without going off on some fucking diatribe, because I've already put so much energy into other aspects of this administration that this is finally the thing. This is finally the thing that, like you said, I don't care anymore, because there are so many people screaming about it that I can't avoid it regardless, and now it has just become white noise, which is not something you want to have happen when you truly do give a shit about something, because being pummeled into submission over something is not a good way to deal with it. But yeah, I just, like I said at the beginning of this, I kind of don't have anything new or relevant to say, and just can we all please just stop? Can we just stop?
The only groundbreaking thing that in this realm that occurred is, the president did those tweets, so the NFL was like, all right, well, fuck you guys. So all these NFL teams, like all of them sat, all 250 of them.
Yep.
They're like, the president said some dumb shit, so we're going to show some unity.
Or
didn't really work out for the Steelers very well. But
or in the case of Dallas, they kneeled beforehand, but then still linked arms because they considered that the more respectful way, which I get.
Sure. I mean, it's whatever these guys want to do. That's the magic of the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression. As long as it's peaceful and you're not hurting anybody, like, fucking, if it's gotten people talking about it, I wish people would talk about it less.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing I appreciate about, freedom of speech right now is that LeBron James can get on Twitter and call Donald Trump a bum. So
And it's amazing, and there ain't shit they can do about it.
So, dear Donald Trump, get dunked on. And
he's bringing Dwayne Wade with him.
Yeah.
Also, get hyped. Dwayne Wade and LeBron James are back together again.
Yeah, great. Good.
I can't wait for the regular season.
All right. On that note, I think this is a good place to stop for this week.
Sure.
Okay. Well, once again, it's November 26, 2017, and this has been the Fourth and Wrong podcast. Say goodbye, Keith.
Goodbye, Keith.
That was a funnier joke in my head when I got a different response out of you. Yeah, that one.
I was like,
yeah, the giggles. That's what I was looking for.
just edit the giggles back past the punchline.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. We'll add more laughter in there. It'll be great. No, I think I'm gonna leave the entire awkward silence in there instead. I think that's the way this one's gonna go.
We need a laugh track.
Yeah.